So, as you know, I've been working amongst the LGBT community for a few years in Brighton now, and during that time have met some extraordinary people who are leading various LGBT community projects or are very involved in those projects. And I know that you've met some of the folks if you were at Pride, and at a social event, AJ and I got talking, and it turned out we had some things in common besides being involved with the in advocacy in the LGBT community. So SJ works for RISE, and especially the LGBT focused project that's happening there. Some extraordinary work happening with that project, and of course with the LGBT Community Safety Forum. So she's now holding my hand as we walk through that. And apart from that, there's another really extraordinary story which AJ's only hinted at over the time that we've got together, and I've wanted to hear it. And this was as good a way to do it as any. So I would like you to help me welcome, please, AJ Paterson.
Hello. Hi. Michael, thank you so much for inviting me, and it's a real honour to come and get space to kind of speak to people about kind of my experiences, kind of along with kind of when I was 14, that's when I first kind of learned about God and the Bible, and I met some missionaries in Scotland, because I'm from Scotland originally, and I guess it's like the verses that you heard at the beginning are like my most favourite verses in all the Bible, and they kind of live with me, and that is about love and kindness, and it's also about looking after orphans and widows as well, because that category, kind of orphans and widows, says to me that it's not just them, it's kind of people who are lost, who are misplaced in life, and so it's really important to me that everything that I've learned along my kind of journey, that love and kindness is at the centre of that. And so when I met these missionaries in Scotland when I was younger, I used to go back and visit because I'm from Scotland originally, and the thing that they were doing is that they were going out into the community and they were speaking to people out in the community. But the other thing that they were doing is that they were helping the elderly. They were going into places where people were disabled, and they were helping them out, and that to me was just lovely, and I think that's probably what I fell in love with, because, you know, I love to talk about love and the lovely things that people do, because, you know, in these days and ages, there's a lot of kind of hate in the world at the moment, and I think it's really important to keep promoting love. So I wanted to talk about love today and about emulating that, and also kindness, as those verses said. So, you know, I love my partner, I love my family, I love my friends, I love tennis, I love fighting for people's rights, that's really important to me. I have love tattooed on my arm. It says love is a verb because it's like an action word, and my first tattoo, which says it's Latin for love always and love at all times, and I wanted those on my skin because I want to be as kind and loving to people as possible. I also love movies. I love movies. I love watching movies. So there's lots of things that I love, and love is an action word, right? We've got to kind of emulate that. And actually, at the beginning, when I think it's Wendy was speaking, she talked about being part of a community. You know, that you are part of a community and that you're there for one another, and also the Community Safety Forum that we work with, that's part of a community where we're there for one another in the good times and also the challenging times. So that's really important to me, and community, it feels like we need it more than ever at the moment, because I remember when I was younger and I used to like hang out on the streets in Scotland with all my friends, and I remember all my parents, my grandma, if there was anybody in need in that street, they would go out and they would sort things out together as like families and as a community. And so I think that's really important. Getting dry mouth already. So I wanted to name some things that love means. And Love is about deep affection, it's about fondness, it's about tenderness, it's about warmth, it's about intimacy, it's about endearment, it's about devotion, it's about worship, we're just worshipping there. It's about passion, compassion, it's about care, it's about caring, and I can see that here and the things that I know that Michael does. It's about friendship, it's about kindness, it's about charity, it's about goodwill. So love it's just so key. And that's, I guess, why I definitely got involved with the church, because it emulates that, and it emulated that for me. I'll say now that there was obviously some differences because of my sexuality. So the church that I used to be involved with were very much, I suppose what I want to say is fundamental Christians, that they believed one man, one woman. Of course that didn't marry with me. I was like, you know, this is not what I'm feeling, but this is only one part of me. You know, my sexuality is just one side of me. But nonetheless, I got involved, and because of that church, I was really, there was 2 churches I was involved with. I started to really want to go out into the mission field in different countries and kind of help other people. So I just wanted to share some of those experiences and stories with you. So in I think it was 1991 or 1992, dates aren't good because I am actually getting older. I know I look young, but I'm getting older. I went out to Austria because it was the first safe place for the Croats and the Serbians to go to from the former Yugoslavia war. And I went out there with a group called Operation Mobilization, which was a missionary. They did a lot of missions around the world. And I went out there to go into what they call pensions, but they're hotels for people to stay in. And not only did I meet people from the former Yugoslavian war, I met people from, I think it's the former Soviet Union, but Russia, who were kind of fled for political reasons. I met people from Hungary. I didn't know that there was issues in Hungary, but they had fled for political reasons. I met women from Iraq and Iran who had fled because of the prejudice against women there. And I met all these beautiful people, and we'd go around and we'd take things to them. But the first thing that they did was give to us. They would have made us a meal. They had nothing. They didn't have very much at all. And they were beautiful people. And one of the things I remember from being out there, just which is quite funny, was that I didn't drink a lot of coffee. And I was told to prepare myself to drink a lot of coffee in Austria because there was a lot of Turkish coffee that was coming out. And the girl that I used to go around with was diabetic, and they put sugar in the coffee. So basically, I probably did about 12 shots of that coffee a day. So I was like bouncing off the ceilings by the end of the day because you just like, that might have been all that they had to give you, so you wanted, so we'd quickly swap it. And I'd drink hers as well. So, yeah, I was bouncing off the walls by the end of the day, and I'm a massive coffee fan now. But yeah, so they would cook for us, and they make beautiful meals, and I met some beautiful people. And there was 2 people that kind of were striking to me, and that was a guy called Peter, who was from former Soviet Union, and he, I think now, and I look back at maybe some of the reasons that he was there, and I probably didn't recognise him at the time. But I know that he was very political, and that the KGB were after him, so he came to Austria to kind of seek residency there. But I also feel that actually, after thinking about it, I think that he was gay as well, but I don't think I realised it at the time. And maybe he didn't feel back then that he could share that with us. And then there was a wonderful family, a mum and 2 daughters, and Anahid, they'd come from Iraq. It was Iraq, I keep thinking Iraq, it was such a long time ago. But they had lost their father, and basically they escaped because they knew that someone else was just going to kind of come into that family, and they'd continue to be persecuted. And they were just beautiful people, and they just gave so much. But I also know that when I left, they said, you know, thank you to us for kind of going around and showing that love to us in quite difficult times. And the second thing that I did was I went to South Africa in 2001 to work with street children, and I went out there with the Amos Trust, And the Amos Trust were lovely because one of the things, I'd come out then as a lesbian, and I didn't want to go to church incognito and pretend to be something that I wasn't. So I emailed them and told them, and they said, "You're so welcome to come out and help us," which is like a big deal for me. And so we went out to work with street children, and there's a guy out there called Tom Hewitt that we worked with. And he was a professional surfer, so he would travel around the world, and he stopped off in South Africa, and he saw the issue with street children, and he stayed there, and he set up this amazing project that gets kids back into school, that gets kids surfing, because I think it was back in before apartheid, you know, black people weren't allowed to go in the water, and now there's these amazing surfers that are kind of coming up, and also he gets them back to schools, and they have hostels out there now as well. So we went out there to kind of hang out and find out about the work that we're doing. And I had the great honour of meeting a guy called Eddie Daniels, who was in prison with Nelson Mandela for 16 years. I want to just tell you a little bit about Eddie Daniels, because the thing about Nelson Mandela and the stuff that happened in South Africa is that he emulates love. I know there were some really tough times for them, but he just promotes that kind of loving kindness, and that's what we got from hanging out with Eddie Daniels as well. Eddie Daniels was from Cape Town. He became aware of the injustices through his involvement with the photographic business. So he took photographs for a newspaper. He started seeing the hurt that the people suffered simply because they were non-white. After becoming involved in various demonstrations, he found that the Liberal Party of South Africa, and he went into the principles, and that they were fighting for democracy and justice in a non-racial South Africa, and that he valued. So he basically got involved with that, and he got arrested for being like a political leader, and he went into jail. And he was at Robben Island with Nelson Mandela. Eddie Daniels took us around Robben Island, which is very emotional, because he was telling stories and he was actually in that story. And he said that one of the things that Nelson Mandela would say to all the people in the prison was like, "We're not going to retaliate against the guards." They would have to sit outside and like chip away at stones and make them into little stones. And they did that for years. And what happened is, because they did that, some of the guards, who I think, you know, he said they were expecting us to retaliate and get really horrible to them, but we didn't. They became friends with them. And then before you knew it, they had books arrive, they had table tennis arrive, and a lot of them left prison with like a BA honours in teaching or whatever. And so it's just that meeting him and him telling those stories again validated, like, just got to keep showing love to people. It's just so important. And basically, it's the reason that, you know, I'm involved with the LGBT Community Safety Forum, which Michael is part of as well. We basically want to be there for people when they're in trouble. And it's really interesting, because one of the reasons, I think, when I met Billy Lewis, who's the chair of it, he said to me, "I get loads of people calling from other countries or emailing us from other countries who are LGBT, and they want support. And because I've got that experience and I know some of the kind of laws, then I'm able to kind of help in any way that I can." And then also I work for RISE, who are a charity that support people who are experiencing domestic abuse in intimate relationships or family. And obviously we also get people who whole communities or whole families are against them for being trans. You know, there's a lot of trans people who really are struggling because whole families are rejecting them and saying some pretty awful things to them as well. So it's really important to be part of that and to show those people love and kindness. I was just about to say, one of the other things, the other stories that I have for you, is that I went to Lebanon in 1998, and I went out there with the church. When I was involved with church, I was worship leader. It's lovely to sing some of the songs I remember. I used to play drums and also used to lead worship as well on the guitar. We had like a big old band going on. It's like a rock band in church. And so we went to Lebanon to kind of an underground church. And I was playing drums in the band. But we would go around and we'd visit the students in Lebanon. And we would talk to them about God. And I met this one woman called Dahlia who had come to Lebanon because she was raped, and she had to come to Lebanon to get surgery because she was going to marry someone, and so she had to have reconstructive surgery because she'd been raped, and because even though she'd been raped, they saw that as a bad thing, that, you know, that she had to have the surgery to correct that, even though it wasn't her fault, and that was in 1998. So just, and again, she had this lovely apartment, which is above the hotel that we were living in, and she'd invite us up, we'd have dinner, and we'd chat, and we'd watch movies and to the early hours of the morning and chat with her. And it's just all these people in my life that I've met that are really important. And Michael, you're so lovely as well. You know when you meet people and you're just like, oh my gosh, they just emulate such loveliness and community. And community is like, as I said earlier, I feel like it's so important that we have community. And one of the focuses has been, what's wrong with community? There's so much wrong with it, and there's things going really wrong. And I think we need to turn it on its head and say what's strong in our communities, because, you know, I'm sure in this room that there's people who've got amazing talents and who love their community and want to support and help them. So I guess that's my message. I think I might have said it a little bit quicker than you might have wanted me to, but that's my message.
Thank you.